It's daybreak here on the Rise News. Time for the press preview. Let's take a look at This Day, our sister publication. The leading headline this morning: Atiku, Shettima statement denigrates business that employs thousands of workers. Let's take some riders there. Maintains politics, doesn't confer license to be reckless. Says Tinubu's running mate should apologize to Nigerian workers employed by his businesses. Meanwhile, Dele Momodu, ex-VP, remains one of the biggest employers of labor in Nigeria. Above that, it's payback time. Shettima tells the Hausa community in Lagos. That's on page 10. Meanwhile, PDP drags APC to court over alleged unlawful convention. Above the nameplate of This Day this morning, Emefiele, weak infrastructure, low income, others hampering digital financial integration. Meanwhile, Shomole says fuel subsidy has been a huge source of fraud for long.
And we take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning. 2023 APC is unbeatable in Lagos, says Tinubu. And also Federal High Court names task force on pre-election cases. Afenifere drops Adebanjo as acting national leader. Rivers Governor okays 78 billion naira for completion of projects and others. And WHO predicts 30% rise in Africa's cancer deaths in 20 years.
The Guardian Nigeria this morning. Afenifere, I remain leader, says Adebanjo as Fasoranti returns. Fasoranti says Afenifere meetings will now hold in Akure. At the bottom there, 2023 PDP asks courts to sack all APC candidates and Adamu-led NWC.
And in the Punch this morning, EFCC arrests 87 forex dealers in Abuja, Lagos. And also floods, federal government okays 506 billion naira East-West Road contract. And oil theft, 134 ship Ross court cases drag.
Let's take a look at some international papers now. The Independent. Please help. Migrants plead to Britain. That leading photo there. Detainees at the processing unit in Kent yesterday, where some wrote a letter describing it as a prison. Just below that, Sunak, the new prime minister, rips up pledges from leadership contest. Number 10 admits everything PM promised could now be axed.
And in the Daily Express, the major headline there is Suella eyes up 3 more countries to send migrants.
And for the press preview, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello, who joins us now. Emmanuel, good morning. Thanks for being here with us. Let's take a look at that leading headline on This Day. Was expected, a reply to Shettima. Atiku says that statement he made about him denigrates business that employs thousands of workers and says he needs to apologize to those that are employed under his businesses.
Yeah, you're right, but we were expecting this because This Day also, reported. This Day has been is doing a lot of balancing reporting. You report both sides of the story. So yesterday was all about the APC and what Shettima Tinubu said about Atiku. Today we're getting all the backlash from the Atiku side, and it came down on Shettima really hard yesterday. There was the Dele Momodu's own, there was Daniel Bala's own, which is not reported here, but it was also very strong. There was the other ones too that came very strongly from the Atiku camp, but basically saying that it was wrong for Shettima to have called Atiku just a bottled water seller, referring to the very popular Faro water. It's very, very popular around those parts of the country. So it's saying that, look, Atiku cannot be, you can't just, summarize Atiku's businesses down to just bottled water, and that he's been very successful in other businesses. Even actually saying that, look, when you say things like that, you're actually denigrating those who are working, who are earning their source of livelihood from Atiku businesses, and there are those so many of those businesses that they were reeling out. And Dele Momodu, for instance, also took a swipe at Shettima when Shettima had said Atiku can't even unite his party, and Dele Momodu said that no, that goes to the APC. That APC it took them forever to be able to even just come up with the presidential council, an indication of how divided the APC is. So it's a back and forth. And normally they make very interesting reporting to hear what the other side will say, the reaction from the other side. So this day dwelled on that today, and it's good reporting on its own, balancing the stories and the way it's being viewed. And one other strong thing that came out from those back and forth yesterday was Dele Momodu's charge that all the other people who were charging at Shettima, blaming him for the crisis in the Northeast, saying that, look, the roles he played were not so pleasant, and that he too cannot in any way point to anything he's done directly, and that some of those developments he keep holding on to are not cannot really account. So they are now putting his Shettima's records in focus and beaming their searchlight on it, and actually questioning his role, not even in just the Chibok girls, kidnapped. In case you remember that here, the Chibok story. It's a story that lived with us for a very long time, and that was at the time Shettima was governor of Borno State. So they are calling out that, and calling out so many other things that happened during his time as Borno State governor. You will say that some people will say that he's actually, he's beaten so much that he cannot really chew them right now, because so much focus on him, and he too actually out there showing that, look, he's probably even more fanatical about becoming VP than Tinubu is campaigning to be president.
Now, we did on this yesterday a little bit, and it's the schism in the Afenifere, where two people are holding claims to leadership. Now, Adebanjo is saying he's back and he's the leader of the Afenifere Pan-African Yoruba group, while Pa Faswanti is also claiming leadership. Schism. Let's talk about this for a moment.
Yeah, I think it's a very serious story. I see the Nation newspaper downplaying it and actually, just actually putting it somewhere up in its paper there and saying that Faswanti has taken over from Pa Adebanjo. But it's a huge story, and I think that's why Guardian is actually leading with it, and Guardian also led with it yesterday. It's leading with it again today to tell you how serious this is, because at the heart of it, it's not just the back and forth between two very old people, two old men. You look at them, you see your grandparents in them. They are heading to 100, and having this back and forth, you wonder why they are still doing. One of the commentators in the Guardian story said that he can't understand that men who are close to 100 years are actually having this kind of back and forth. And actually, it's interesting because Pa Adebanjo has actually thought he was he's the leader of Afenifere. Suddenly, Faswanti is out of nowhere and claiming that he's the leader. But remember that Faswanti is of the Tinubu. He endorsed Tinubu, while Adebanjo is saying that, look, Afenifere is not just a pro-Yoruba organization, that it's time for them to actually do what is historically right according to him, and what is correct, which is to endorse an Igbo candidate. And even though it's a Yoruba social cultural group, that it's a group that have always looked at what is happening in the nation, and that yes, they can endorse someone that is not just Yoruba. In fact, he's actually saying that Faswanti is so old that they're taking that Tinubu is taking advantage of his age. Imagine that coming from someone that is as old as Faswanti himself, saying that he's blaming the old age of Faswanti. But this is really, really interesting. I think that's why the Guardian is beaming on it. Two very, very old men leading with younger people saying that, look, we don't even want to be part of this tirade between these two very respected leaders of the Yoruba people. Some people saying that Tinubu only took advantage of the age of Faswanti to say that he's been endorsed. So as far as Afenifere is concerned, led by Pa Adebanjo, they also is still in charge, even though Faswanti is calling for a meeting elsewhere, saying sign that things have the guard has changed, and in Afenifere, Adebanjo is saying that he does not think anyone will go for that meeting, and that for now he's still in charge. And yes, they've endorsed Obi as the president, as the next president.
Now, Emmanuel, there was an interview on Rise News yesterday, the morning show, which has garnered a lot of criticism, a lot of responses on social media and the likes. That's the interview with Oshomole, who's part of Bola Tinubu's campaign organization. On the front of this day newspaper, it says, this is from Oshomole, this full subsidy has been a huge source of fraud for long. He was beaming the light on what he says is a big fraud, but he kept on associating it with the past administration, former President Jonathan, former Petroleum Minister Desiani. But under the APC, reps have uncovered billions of dollars in diversion from that subsidy and other atrocities, haven't they?
Yes, they have, and in case that's the beat and bone of that that interview yesterday, where he was actually again and that's the crisis of being part and parcel of you know, the APC, because the more you talk about this thing, the more it looks like some kind of self-indictment. So because he was reminded yesterday that, well, the subsidy you are talking about, more of it happened under the regime that you are projecting and you are actually campaigning for. It rose to 6 trillion or so in terms of you know, in terms of volume of amount spent on subsidy. So yes, he called it a fraud, he called it all those names, but people are quick to remind him that, well, some of a chunk of that actually happened under the regime that he's campaigning for. It's the crisis that Oshomole, and I think a whole lot of people campaigning for for the APC, you know, are constantly faced with people reminding them that, well, it happened under your watch. So what have you got to say about that? So that was the point that we, of course, he spoke so glowingly about what everyone has said about those subsidies, that they were fraud at an industrial scale. But they quickly brought him back to reality and say, well, it happened under your watch, and so don't just blame past regime. Look at what has happened under the regime that you are calling for, because this regime has not been able to muster the goodwill or even the political will to be able to stop those subsidy, huge theft and robbery that's been going on in the name of fuel subsidy. People blaming the president for not being able to do that, even when he promised he was going to do it. And so by Oshomole, we have to defend that, just like he has to defend many other things.
Now, the redesigning of the Naira notes is not going as smoothly as they should on the streets. Now, talking about forex crisis, as arrests has been made in Lagos and Abuja, 87 forex dealers have been arrested, and they're beginning to complain about it. Now, let's talk about the pros and cons of this, what the CBN should have thought about before this move, and how this situation can now be controlled.
Yeah, and Benny, I think I don't know if you're also aware of what Obaseki said when he said that the whole thing itself is mired in some kind of political controversy now, and that the timing clearly suggests that the APC was not actually doing this, or rather the government was not thinking straight, like just like you noted that, okay, did they take everything, was everything taken into consideration before such very interesting, an interesting development? Were they looking at all the parameters, or it was just a rush thing? And why is the rush? So Obaseki, the governor of Edo State, is questioning this, almost asking the question that we've been asking since we started looking at this story: the timing. Why do we need it now? The government has said that, look, it's to mop up all those monies, the black money in the black market and all of that. Those are the good side of it. Some commentators say that, well, that's beautiful. The anti-graft bodies like it, say that it's going to take away bad money from the market. But people are also looking at the timing. People are tying it down. People are beginning to even tie it with the elections. That's okay. Is there a ploy to take away monies that were going to be used for campaigns and all of that from the system? Obaseki seems to be suggesting and saying that maybe a good policy, but the timing and even the intention might not be entirely as glorious as it is. But the drama we're seeing now is of EFCC raiding forex and the dollars getting more and more scarce, and the naira falling. I don't know what's the rate today, but it's a free fall for the naira so far.
Quickly, Mano, before we let you go, on the Nation newspaper, there's a report there by the federal government on flooding. It's detailing their plans to avert food shortage, obviously one of the consequences of flooding amongst others. But more importantly, they should be looking for ways to prevent those flooding, right?
Yes, there should be a lot of that, but we should be hearing about how to, because we don't know what other natural disaster. Governor Diri of Bayelsa State has been on top of it. There also reports of his efforts and all of that, and some other bodies, even multinationals coming in aid now, supporting the effort. You are right, Nkechi. We need to actually think outside the box, think of technologies, or think of ways, in some kind of engineering feats that we in the future, stop. Reduce, mitigate the effect of especially like the food shortages, because the farms are washed away and all of that. So in this story, you see the effort, federal government actually thinking of how to stop a situation where a lot of people believe that will be farming next year, serious shortage of food crisis because of the flood. In this story, it's very interesting what government is trying to do, even get individuals. In fact, some actually think of double farming in the dry season farming period to see whether they can increase the activities of farming and farmers to mitigate the crisis of food shortage. But right now, those crises are staring us in the face, and you're right, we need to start thinking of creative, modern 21st century method of stopping some of this from happening.
Bello, thank you so much for your analysis, as always. Now, let's share your view on all the burning issues. Follow us on Twitter at The Rise TV. You can also join to this conversation using the hashtag RiseDaybreak.